Hey everyone, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy here, just getting things adjusted. Thank you so much for joining us. I am here again for a daily recap of what we saw at the 2019 USDGC. Now, of course, today, day number 2, it was Thursday. It is Thursday. It is October 3rd specifically. And pretty crazy day out there. I guess you could say that almost no matter what happens. But what I want to do here tonight is I want to go over kind of what I did last night and talk about what I saw out on the course, or what at least I consumed from social media as things unfolded today. I feel like there were a few cool new stories that ultimately unfolded. Of course, we're seeing a great battle taking place atop the leaderboard, so that's a consideration. But first, I'm going to take just a moment. So if you could hang on, I'd like to go ahead and share the link. I'm going to put it out there on Facebook so everybody knows that it's going on. So if somebody wants to participate, one of the cool things I'm going to be doing tonight, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about it here in a moment, is going to offer up a few giveaways and have some things going on as I see a little bit of the chat rolling in. Maybe you saw the thumbnail, maybe you didn't, but one of the first things that I want to do is take a page that we've seen in the past, and I want to reward and thank and provide a little kickback. Some might call it loosely a raffle, but provide a little kickback with regards to anyone that super chats tonight. So if you're in the super chat mood, you just might have a chance to take home a free pair of Keens. Yeah, free pair of Keens. Keen, excuse me. Keen has very much supported me throughout the years. They've of course supported disc golf on so many levels. They've supported a ton of our players, including a few of the players that are out there this weekend. And one of the things that they do is they give me a few things, and we find good, clever ways to give them away. And what's really cool about that particular card, the card that you would potentially win tonight, I'm not showing you the code yet, this particular card, good for any pair at all on their website. So if you want a $200 pair of boots, you want a pair of $90 sandals, or a pair of $40 kid shoes, or whatever it is, anything is possible. So real quick, I see some of you guys jumping on it. I appreciate it. What we're doing is, for every $2 in super chat that you provide tonight, that essentially gets you one ticket to possibly winning a pair of Keens. And I think I'm going to have a follow-up prize as well. I'm not sure. I've got some options. I'm sticking with the Innova theme. I've got a Destroyer. I've got an X-Out Rock. I've got custom stamped Mamba. I've got a cool hand-picked double stamped AVR that I actually picked when I attended the USDGC. So maybe I'll give you guys a choice, or we'll see how things go. I'm guessing a few of our amazing super chatters out there and followers, somebody's going to be able to do a little bit of logging for me, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to stay on top of it all. So it may either get drawn at the end of the absolute end of the broadcast, or at the beginning of tomorrow night's. So yeah, you love the Disc Golf Guy bedsheet. I appreciate that. That's thanks to Miles over at Paragon. So thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to see if I can adjust this. I apologize. I hope the entire operation doesn't come crashing down. I guess it's just going to have to be a little bit off center tonight. There we go. I think that's a little better. All right. So, Ryan, are you out there? Somebody out there? Maybe you can keep a little running spreadsheet for me. Zach Pajek, maybe somebody. Super shout out to Aaron and Beth Palm. Maybe your birthday in Minnesota. Either way. All right. So here we go. I've got a few items to talk about. Where to start is the good question. We've got leaders in Chris Clemons to talk about. We got the lefties to talk about. I actually felt kind of like a journalist today. I reached out to a couple of people and got a few words from them, Chris Clemons being one of them. And then someone that we maybe didn't necessarily expect or think about ahead of time, but we saw Kristin Jennings on the broadcast today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about her experience. I did catch a few words from her, and then of course I'm going to talk about the media, what I saw from the media, and kind of break things down a little bit there as well. And so let's start with some of the leader card play. All right. So of course we saw we talked about it yesterday. We saw the two lefties out there doing their thing, and I'm going to use disc as always. But right now, Chris Clemons ultimately is your leader. He's sitting at 118, and he's sitting at 16 under par. So you want to talk about consistent. Yesterday, he has 9 birdies and a single bogey, shoots 8 under par. Today, he comes out, has 8 birdies and no bogeys, and shoots another 8 under par. So clearly doing good things, doing a lot of things right, and doing them very well. And then Nathan Queen, kind of a similar story. Nathan yesterday, I believe, opened with the 8 under par, or correction, 7 under par. Today, he follows that up with an 8 under par, and he had just one blemish on his scorecard, and that was hole number 14. He went out of bounds near the hay bales, or whatever those are called today. He went out of bounds there on his tee shot, and then ultimately walked away with the bogey 4. Nico LaCastro rounding out the top 3. Nico having a stellar day out there. He shoots what I believe is the hottest round of the tournament so far. Yeah, I can confirm that. 10 under par. That is the hottest round of the tournament, so huge props to Nico. And most importantly, he kept it perfectly clean. And I know we saw him kind of near the end of the broadcast. Kristin actually interviewed him. He talked about staying positive, having good vibes, and just keeping his mental focus and going out there and kind of grinding through. He ultimately had 8 birdies and an eagle on hole number 10. And I think we know hole 10 is definitely the most attackable hole on the course if you're going after an eagle. And, we saw it kind of bite Drew Gibson, which I'll talk about in a little while. But hole 10, definitely the one. If you're going to attack for an eagle, that seems to be the one that people go after. And today, Nico got it. And then I'm going to say rounding out our top 4 for tomorrow, joining on that lead card, fighting his way up there, shooting a 7 under par, we see Eagle McMahon. And so Eagle opened with a 6 under, which put him on the chase card. And then today he comes back in, shoots a 7 under par, and he had a little bit of a slow start. And I say that because after 6 holes, he was 1 over par. And Eagle himself had 2 bogeys. The 3 guys in front of him today had a combined single bogey. So it's pretty incredible golf, not only by the top 3, but by Eagle to really get things going after he had a little bit of that slow start. Now, Drew Gibson was on the card, of course, today, as was Drew Gibson, as was Simon Lizotte. We saw, unfortunately, if you were watching the live broadcast, and maybe some of you didn't, you'll have to let me know, but Simon Lizotte really struggled out there today, and he ultimately shoots a +2, and he drops down 17 spots into a tie for 19th. And I don't want to say it was just ugly throughout. I don't think that's a fair way to say it, but wow, he just really struggled. Didn't seem to really get off the tee that well. Nothing spectacular on his putting. He ended up putting things together a little bit better. He took 3 birdies in the last 5 or 6 holes, but nothing special. You saw him take some crazy lines. You saw him get a little bit of a good break, a little bit of a bad break, everything in between. But I wouldn't say it felt like he necessarily mentally checked out, but when I was talking to Chris Clemons earlier, I said maybe it feels like, sometimes when a player's struggling and they say, well, my staggered putt isn't working for me, so just to change things up, I'm going to go to a straddle putt. Well, it feels like Simon, in kind of a similar fashion, said, well, my normal play, my normal attack isn't working for me today. Nothing seems to be going quite right for me. I'm going to throw some crazy lines, or I'm going to do some crazy stuff. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We all know he's a showman. We all know he loves to go for the big shots and wow the crowd. And he's never short of doing just that, of wowing a crowd. So, yeah, some of those shots were incredible. Some of those not so much. So that's what we saw from some of the lead card, or from the actual lead card. Not a ton of shifting outside of Simon. Of course, again, Clemons remains in the lead. Holy cow, thank you, Doug. Clemons remains in the lead with that 16. Nathan Queen with the 15. Nico now at 14. And Eagle at 13. So if you're thinking, wow, I'd really love to see a great battle and no one run away with this, well, it seems like you're kind of in... We're in that position. we're looking at what should be a great battle. Now, maybe someone like Chris Clemons can absolutely distance himself from the pack, or any one of those guys tomorrow just goes off, has a 12 or a 14, under par or something like that, and they really pull away from the field. Doesn't seem like that's been the case so far, since 10 has been the hottest number from Nico. But of course, we're just halfway through the round. Some people are going to start pushing. Some people are going to start thinking about where they are and where they need to be. Something else I want to talk about along those lines, and one thing I do want to quickly mention, I do not know the story about Matty O DNFing, and I apologize. I just saw it now and thought about it again. I'm not really sure of the story. Maybe somebody out there can fill me in with some credible information, but I do not know the story as to Matty O and his DNF. That's how he was listed on the UDisc today. I know there was some chatter about it on the board, but I don't really know what that story is. So maybe if somebody knows what it is, we could share it with the rest of the world. Hopefully everything's okay. Hopefully it wasn't maybe... I wouldn't think something like a heat exhaustion, because if there's anyone that is, maybe used to that heat and humidity more than most, Matty O, coming from Mobile, Alabama, would be most accustomed to it. But hopefully, whatever the case might be, he's okay. So if somebody has that story, I'd love to hear it. Now, I know on UDisc, and I wish I would have looked for it a little earlier. I know earlier today they mentioned that they had implemented and started talking about the cut line. And I don't know if it was the cut line or if it was the cash line, or if those are the same thing in this case. However, I'm not seeing it jump out at me. Now, maybe that's better on the mobile version versus... I feel like I should have asked about that ahead of time. But I know they mentioned it, that it was implemented, or that it was put into place. And maybe someone, again, can clarify with me on that. But the closest thing I see to that is... I was going to say Matty O, who sits in... So Matty O sits right now in... Well, he doesn't sit, but there's a line where his name was, and that's around 47th. So I'm not sure if they're kind of unofficially, if that's somehow a cut line or not. Jason on the board is telling me that it says the top 50 cash, but it does not say that necessarily here. So if someone can clarify... Again, that'd be great. Sounds like I didn't bring all my info tonight, but it did hit me because they said it earlier that they were going to have it. I just don't actually see it. I don't think it's crystal clear, unless I'm just looking in the wrong place, which is quite possible. As always, huge shout out, and all the credit really goes to udisclive.com. If you go out there, almost everything that I'm talking about, you will find available out there right now. And Joe Hav Productions is telling me that, or Yohav Productions is telling me that +1 is in fact the cut line, which is exactly what I was just talking about. That's right where they have Matty O at least positioned in 47th place, and that's sitting at +1. So quickly, I will sidetrack to that. Currently outside of the cut line right now, which means, I don't say means nothing, but it means a lot less at the moment, and it will for another, at least one more round. But right now, outside of the cut line, I'm looking at Matt Dollar, Brad Schick, Kevin Jones, Adam Hammis, Silver Lott, Austin Hannum, Dan Hastings, Colton Montgomery, Austin Turner, Zachariah Johnson, Zach Melton, Jordan Castro, Peter McBride, Martin Hendel. I mean, these are names that you see every single weekend. And Logan Bowers, Nolan Greider, AJ Risley, Johnny McRae, Sias Elmore. I mean, these are names that you would never see outside of the cut line, Brian Earhart included. So I skipped one name in there, the name being Paul McBeth. And we'll quickly touch on his day today. It looked like he didn't do what I think everyone would say he needed to do. And what he needed to do was to come back with a scorching or near scorching round to maybe get himself, not only get himself in position, but I think make everyone still realize and think, okay, he's a contender here for the event. He didn't do that. All right, so if we're looking at his scorecard, when I go back up to round 2, ultimately he is sitting at +4. He had I don't know if I'd say a roller coaster of a round, but when I scroll down and take a look at how he had done, of course, some people are tracking him for the, the Grand Slam, the, sweeping the majors this year. A little bit of a slow start. He's sitting at like 1 over as he's going into the back 9, and then it feels like he picks up. Like, I think 11 and 12 is where he went, 6-9 yesterday. Today he goes 3-3, but then on the 888 hole, he takes a 7. So he takes a double, free disc. He takes a double bogey on the 888 hole, and then he follows it right back up with a birdie on 14, a birdie on 15, and a birdie on 13, 14, then a birdie on 17. So it feels like some of the places, as I think back to yesterday when he finished out and he needed to finish strong, he goes birdie on 16 and a birdie on 18 and misses 17. Today, he misses 16 and 18 but gets 17. So at some point he'll color in all the dots here on the card, but all the boxes. But that again, relatively strong finish, with the exception of the double bogey. Holes 9 through 17, he ended up picking up 6 birdies, and he had the double in there mixed in as well. Overall, not an impressive day by Paul McBeth standards, by someone you're expecting to win this or do really well, to be in contention at the end of the weekend. He shoots just a -2, and he does jump up 23 spots into a tie for 60th, but as I just mentioned, that's currently outside of the cut line, which is just ridiculous. It's incredible to think someone who has finished as well as he has this year specifically, that he's outside of the cut line at the halfway point right now. So that's what we're seeing. Okay. Other notables that I want to talk about, I guess one of the cool things that we have is what we call the Nico arrows, deemed from Nico missing a few holes back at the Waco a few years ago in the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And then as he arrived at the course, we saw him kind of shoot himself up the leaderboard as he got there. He got the penalty strokes, but then continued to jump himself up the leaderboard. So it was right around that time that our good friends over at UDisc implemented these little arrows, which tells you right underneath their score as to how many positions they've either gained or lost during the day. So if I'm just going to do a really quick perusing of those, I think that's a pretty fancy term. I'm gonna go for the positives and look at the people that jumped up. Kevin Sheehan Jr. jumped up what looks like 26 spots. Logan Bauer had a good rebound, jumping up 39 spots here today. Jordan Castro had, I guess he had, unfortunately, the reverse effect. He dropped himself 46 positions with his follow-up round here today. And then I'm going to continue to scroll up. Dan Hastings, a little bit more what we'd expect from him. He moved up 27 spots. Scott Withers moving up 24 spots. So when you're looking at some of these players and just the kind of jumps that they're making, it's pretty incredible to see what a really solid round can do for you with how competitive things are. Brian Schweberger has to be in contention. Again, I should have run these numbers. Has to be in contention. 44 spots we saw Brian Schweberger jump up today. Schwebby came in with a 6 under par. There's only a handful of people that have played the USDGC more often than Brian Schweberger, so maybe no real surprise. He got off to a really hot start and then just carried it. And then speaking of carrying, AJ Carey just couldn't quite close it out. But holy cow, he was off to a really good start. At one point, he had 6 birdies in the first 7 holes, and then took the eagle on hole 10, which I talked about a little earlier. Follows up with birdies on 12 and 13, and then unfortunately bogeyed 3 out of the last 4. But he was just tearing up the leaderboard. He still moved up 22 positions, but he was on pace. Again, had he just parred out, he'd be looking more at -6 overall. A few other people. Philip Bartholomew moved up 33 spots on the day. That's obviously pretty impressive. And Greg Barsby, our 2018 world champion, moved up 24 spots today. Alex Russell, 31 spots. James Conrad with 14 spots. So, and Nico, again, with his Solid round today. He obviously had a decent solid round, opening with 4 under par yesterday. Comes in with that 10 under. So although it was the hottest round, he played pretty well to open. So he just moves up 11 spots. But maybe most importantly, 11 spots onto the feature card, onto the live card, onto the Spin TV card, and just an all-around really, really impressive performance there by Nico today. So we'll see if he can keep things going. I think he was wearing a hat that said "Happy Thoughts," and let's see if he can keep that going. I mean, I'll admit, I'll quickly share. A few weeks ago, in traveling to Nantucket, I was taking the last ferry ride onto Nantucket Island, and Nico it wasn't planned. Nico was on that ride as well. I watched him get ready, and we ended up sitting and talking for the entire hour. And I sense a little bit more calmness in Nico. I feel like he's kind of even flat out said, he's like, I'm 30. I've been playing. I've been grinding for a lot of years. I still have good years in me, is exactly what he said. And he knows he can still play high level golf. He knows he's physically capable. He's mentally capable of it. And he knows he needs to take advantage of that before he's going to ultimately move on to whatever his next adventures, on the fringe or outside of disc golf might be. So Nico clearly making a stand. Is he our 2009, 2008 USDGC champion? Back when he had, well, at that time, much bigger hair, a little bit fiery spirit. And there's absolutely no reason why Nico Lacastro couldn't win this. It's just a matter of if he keeps things going. If he does the way he did today, you shoot another 9 and 10 or a pair of 10s or anything in that neighborhood, and I would be surprised if you were not up on, if you were not, vying for that number 1 position at the end of the weekend. All right, looks like Marcus Burke says he's caught up on the Super Chats spreadsheet, and he says we currently have $2 a pop. We currently have 47 entrants. I'm not sure how that math worked out. But yes, Ace Run is asking if there's a contest. I'll quickly plug it again. For every $2 you Super Chat tonight, you are eligible. You're essentially gaining like a ticket to win a free pair of Keen shoes. This is any pair on their website that is available. If it's a $100 pair of shoes, $120 pair of golf shoes, $180 pair of boots, it doesn't matter. It's a completely free pair, and I'm pretty sure even the shipping is actually completely free as well. And if that continues to go well, I may throw in some bonus prizes as well. I've got some other Innova discs here. Or Chad says he wants just to buy the Mamba outright. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly jump over. I did catch up with Chris Clemons, and in somewhat of an actual reporter role, which felt weird. I even admitted to him. I said, I don't normally write questions, but I had a few questions for him, and then I tried to jot down verbatim. I think those are called quotes. Trying to jot down verbatim exactly what he said and how he replied. I'm not fancy enough to bring him in on the actual show right now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read off a few things that we were talking about. I said, on the opening day, when you came in with that 8 under, did you feel like that would be a leader type score? Was that one that you thought would be good enough? And his response to that was, I didn't even really know that I shot what I shot until the round ended. I didn't even realize it. So he had no idea that he was 8 under. He thought that his score was good, but he didn't know specifically what it was at, and he didn't necessarily think that it was going to hold as the hot round. He knew that Eagle McMahon was shooting really well. He saw that. He thought Eagle might come in with like a 10 or 11 or even a 12 because Eagle was tearing it up at that time. But then Eagle had a little bit of a falter at the end, and he said that he wasn't really thinking about it too much, but that an 8 under, he was obviously happy with it. And again, he wasn't thinking about the score, which makes perfect sense. Then we talked a little bit about the idea of the lefty, lefty favoritism. Is it a lefty course? And I very much admitted to him right off the bat. I said, I do not want to sound like I'm in any way diminishing the scores that him or Nathan Queen or their skill sets, because when someone goes out and shoots well, normally we always think, well, no big deal. Most of our players are right-hand dominant, and nothing's really said about it that much. And then I even made a little bit of a gesture about, we commonly see lefties perform well here. And Chris will admit, and I did admit, that he feels like that having the course set up the way that it does, that it doesn't hurt him necessarily. But again, we're on the same page that I'm not diminishing anything that he says there. Okay. So when asking about a lefty, when asking about the course, if it sets up well and so on, he says it sets up well for lefty backhanders. The beach hole is pretty tough. And then he said, I throw pretty much equal amounts of lefty forehands and backhands. And then he kind of even compared that a little bit and said that he feels like he's maybe a little bit more even on his backhands and forehands than, say, Nathan Queen. He's like, Nathan's not really as much of a forehander, so he feels like, Nathan, of course, relies on the lefty backhand shot, whereas Chris is a little bit more comfortable and maybe a little bit more proficient throwing those, lefty forehand shots when they call for it out there. But he said, I didn't really think about it that much, but now that I do, yeah, it is nice and it's great, but he certainly doesn't harp or dwell on the fact. And he too, we kind of both came to the agreement of, again, to not diminish his efforts, but to also I said, you're throwing great shots. I mean, when you throw great shots, whether they're righty or lefty favorable holes isn't going to matter. I mean, you're throwing good shots, you're keeping it in inbounds, and you're making putts. It probably is not going to matter what the course looks like. So that's what he said about that. I said, how did you sleep and how did you feel when you had the lead after day number 1? And he said, last night was, and this is, in referencing his Wednesday night sleep, as they would say, when he went to bed with the lead, he said, last night was probably one of the better nights of sleep I've had in the last week or so. To me, that's incredible. That's comfort. That's a little bit of confidence, maybe a little bit of just fatigue. He said that him and Jordan Castro have been traveling around. They did a little bit of sightseeing in New York, but they got to the USDGC very early. They played a lot. They practiced a lot. And he said he felt like he was ready. He was just ready to get out there and compete. He had a solid game plan, and he felt really, really comfortable. And I said, well, was there maybe even almost like a little exhaustion or sigh of relief? And he's like, I feel like I went out there and I did what I had to do, and I was really comfortable with it. And so for someone to say, I went to bed with the lead at the USDGC, and I felt good about it, and I had a great night of sleep, I think is amazing. And I commend him tremendously. Think back to a year or two ago in talking to, I'll say, Ricky Wysocki, when he was talking about leading the worlds back in Augusta. I remember having a conversation with him, and he told us, he's like, I barely slept all week. Like, I just didn't sleep. And, he was probably running on adrenaline and excitement and everything else. And he may have even, now that I think about it, said that both his first Worlds in Emporia and his second World Championships the next year in Augusta, where he just talked about, being ramped up, things running through his mind, being anxious, being excited. And so I love the fact, and I hope Chris gets a good night's sleep tonight, but I love the fact that he said that may have been, again, last night was probably one of the better nights of sleep I've had in the last week or so. And I really love that. I also said, how are your nerves during this round? You show up with the lead. Obviously, everyone's chasing you. Obviously, people want to see if you can duplicate your effort. Your friends, your family, your non-supporters, everybody's eyes are on you as the leader. And I said, how are your nerves during the round on, say, hole 1 versus hole 10? And he said that waiting before the round is always a little nerve-wracking, and I was just trying to stay in the moment. And then he turned around and said, getting off the tee on hole 1 and basically parking that first shot was great. I said, what was your most memorable shot of the day for you? And he said, hole 1. And he went on to say, setting the pace for the round, putting it really close, and getting the birdie. And that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, there's nothing to build your confidence any more than getting a great tee shot off a hole one on a dangerous hole, as most of them are out there, having the great tee shot, picking up the birdie, and then maybe taking a little bit of a sigh and settling in. He said, I definitely felt, more comfortable as the round went on. I felt more comfortable on 10 than I did on 1, but overall, he said he felt great. And the way he presented, the handling of his nerves, even after, today, I thought was awesome. It was, he's just really concise and put together and confident and calm. And, I think at one point he said, I've practiced and I've played really well. And I can't say that I'm surprised that I'm shooting good golf. I've put in the work. And so I love seeing that. All right. I said, how about any other shots, that were memorable of yours or anyone else's? And he said, he referenced the huge shot that Simon threw on hole number 12. He said, while they were up there waiting, Simon was talking about, wow, is that Eagle's drive where Eagle had landed? He was obviously on the card in front of him. And he said, is that Eagle's drive? And they thought it was pretty incredible. And then Simon got out there and basically threw it right to where Eagle was. And he said that he thought that was pretty impressive, and that, Simon almost kind of even surprised himself. Again, Simon was maybe a little bit in aggressive mode by then, but he thought that shot was pretty amazing. And then I said, what about 16 and the par save? And he said, that was pretty amazing. And then when he said something to Simon about it, Simon replied, I didn't even think that was in. So, and for those that don't know, Simon had thrown out of bounds on hole number 16 with, I'm going to say, a less than stellar roller. He goes out of bounds, and I don't even know what UDisc has it listed at, 100 feet probably. And then he throws it into walk away still. Yeah, 101 feet. That was just a guess of mine. 101 feet, where Simon then makes it through the mozzarella stick, so to speak, and then still walks away with the par. Just absolutely incredible. So, right or wrong, fair or not, Simon's clearly not leading the event. But when I think about the most memorable shots of the day, maybe Simon got us all, because I think about hole number 16. For sure, when I think about what were some of the best shots of the entire day. All right, so anything else from Chris was, again, we were just talk briefly about Simon, and that's when I had said, do you feel like he maybe gave up at any point? He said, I don't think Simon ever gives up. If he isn't playing well, he'll give them the show. And, well, as we were just talking about, I said, is hole 16 really a roller hole for a righty? I mean, Simon's got such incredible forehand. He throws a putter turnover. He can throw a mid turnover. I just personally do not understand the tee shot unless he's being goofy, unless he's being fun and really going for the showman route. I don't understand the roller personally on 16. And Chris had said to me, he goes, I've seen plenty of people try it. I've seen people do it. He didn't dismiss it as much as I did. But as we saw, not a great effort by Simon. Still gets up and down, takes the 3. We talked about the heat briefly, and he says it's been mid-90s every single day. Personally, I enjoy this weather. I'd rather it be 95 than 60 degrees. Chris, Roots, Missouri, Kansas City, so on and so forth. He's used to heat, humidity. And maybe that speaks to it right there when he said he'd rather it be 95 than 60. He knows it's going to be hot today. He knows it's going to be hot tomorrow. And then come Saturday, it may have a high of 75 or so. So by this year's terms, it's going to definitely be cooling down. He says he's fine with that as well, but he likes the heat. He has no problem with the heat. And that's something to think about as we move forward. Can someone handle that? We talked about birdie bags and ways to keep the heat and humidity and the moisture off your hands. When you have someone like Chris saying, hey, bring it on, I'm good with it, maybe that just instills even that much more confidence in him for the rest of the weekend. I said, any parting shots, any final words that you'd like to share with everyone? And he just said, I want to thank everybody that's reached out. I want to thank all the supporters. I want to make everyone as proud as I can, and I want to go out there and shoot good golf. So that's what he had to say. And I said, is there any, along those lines, and he said, I said, what would this mean to you? And he said, of course, it would be unbelievable if you were to take down this championship. You can't get up and worrying about it yet, and I need to stay focused. Which is, dare I say, kind of exactly what I would expect anyone to say at that halfway point. He can't get ahead of himself. You can't get too excited. He's had 2 phenomenal rounds, but it's all been because of his laser focus, his execution, his game plan, sticking to it, and all of those things. So I'm not really surprised he's not thinking too far in the future, but he said it would be unbelievable to take down this title. And we all know this is definitely one of those. There's a few events in your career in the disc golf world that I feel like can be truly, career changing or altering, life altering to some degree. USDGC and Worlds are the 2 that usually come to mind when we're talking about, how somebody could take home a title and then what comes as a result of that. All right, guys, tomorrow, remind me while I wait for my computer to again come out of sleep mode, remind me to turn off my stupid screensaver, which I actually had just set a few weeks ago, and now it wants to pop up on me. All right, that is Chris Clemons. Congratulations to a great 2 days, Chris, you and the rest of the crew. I hope that you guys keep going out there and killing it. All right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run down a few other people that, some of which I talked about yesterday, and I'm just keeping an eye on in the sense that they're part of my Chains for Charity. Unfortunately, they didn't cost me much money today, and I'm talking about Paige Pierce and Kristin Tattar. I went out and I wanted to back both of them. I'm a huge supporter of the FPO side. And Paige had no birdies today, and she shot plus 13 and moves to plus 15 overall. All right, so a really rough day out there for her. She dropped a few more spots, and if I go and look specifically again, she's moved down. She actually dropped 35 positions into a tie for 93rd, and I just can't say it enough. I'm really shocked at her having a lack of birdies, because I know every single hole on that course can be birdied by Paige Pierce. And to have her walk away with no birdies gives you some idea of how challenging that course can really be. All right. So she worsened, like I said, to plus 15 overall. That's quite a far cry. She opened with plus 2, then had the plus 13. She had 6 of her 7 birdies during the first round, came in holes 7 through 17, so kind of the latter half of the course. And today she had none. So what I think also that points to is we look at some of the players that get out to a really hot start. AJ Carey comes to mind. He's killing it in the front 9 or 10 holes, and then really struggles in the back. Paul McBeth, decent round yesterday to open things up. Struggles in the back, turns around and has a better back 9 today. Sometimes, I know it sounds a little silly, but sometimes it feels like that transition from 8 to 9 or even 9 to 10, when you head to the back, it's like, it almost feels like you're going to another course. The way that people can get eaten up so quickly on the back. Usually they're eaten up. Not often does somebody say, yeah, I slayed it, even though a few people did today. But on that back 9, man, that's it feels like that's where a lot of people can give away strokes. Zachariah Johnson would tell me to shove it, as he shot really well in the back today. He ended up birdieing 6 out of the last 8 holes, so very impressive on his back. Luke Humphreys would say that I'm crazy, clearly. He birdied 12 through 18 to finish today. And he had a really solid day all around. He shot -8, and that was with a double bogey, a bogey, and another bogey. So he had 4 over par strokes, and then still shot 8 under par. So very incredible round there by Luke, who had a very strong finish in the back. Just kind of looking at who else had really strong closings. Brian Schweberger did. Joel Freeman did. Yeah, and then you got to get all the way up toward that lead card again. Double G had a really, really strong finish. And then, your leader card also. Most of the guys on the leader card. So the back nine, I feel like, is definitely the place where most people turn around and ultimately give away their strokes rather than pick them up for the most part. All right. So also keeping on track, Kristin Tattar, unfortunately, she had a rougher start than she did yesterday. And then she actually worsened her yesterday's score by a total of 2 strokes. Today she did have 1 more birdie, so she ultimately had 3 birdies. Yesterday she had 2 birdies, so she got 1 more birdie, but ultimately picked up 2 more strokes out on the course. And I think it's fair to say that she struggled just a little bit. I think she only had a handful of pars yesterday, if even that. And then today, 4 pars as well. So she had a few big numbers in there. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me double check that. She had more than a handful of pars, but like I said, she had a few birdies today, a couple birdies out there, and then it looked like hole 9 really bit her as she took a triple bogey 7 on hole number 9. Unfortunately, another number that has to jump off your screen, and clearly this isn't to pick on them, but it proves just how tough it can be. Hole number 5 with 3 OB strokes, we see Emerson Keith card an 11 today, and I only point them out. I think any other year I necessarily wouldn't have pointed that out, but the reason why I feel like that's significant is because we know Emerson Keith. We saw how he played through the first 4.5 rounds, we'll say all 5 rounds of the World Championships, to just come up short of taking home that title as he was battling it out. And so someone of that caliber walked up to a hole. It's a par 5. It's the longest hole in the course. Walked up to a hole and took an 11 on it. So it's only to put it in context how good he is and how much someone can struggle on any given hole out here for Emerson Keith. So I wouldn't be surprised though if tomorrow he walks away with a 2, or sorry, he walks away with an eagle 3 or minimum. I'd put money on it. He walks away with a 4 tomorrow. I bet he cards a birdie 4 when he plays hole number 5 tomorrow. All right. So Kristin and Paige costing me a few more bucks tomorrow. I wish they'd both go out and get 18 birdies or eagles. That'd be great. And it would cost me a bunch of money for Chains for Charity. So I wish them the best. All right. Now we're going to move a little bit into some of the course briefly. And then after that, I'm going to go into what might be a much longer conversation, I feel like, which is just the overall media presence, what we saw in the media, what we think of it, what I think of it. Maybe I'd love to hear what some of you guys are talking about as well. But let's start with some of the holes. This was the first time, and I'll be the first to admit, I did not get a chance to see the early morning that was released, the front 9 of the Spin TV coverage. Holy cow, Tony Boyko, thank you so much. If you have any internet or web needs, Tony's also your guy. Sail On Enterprises. All right. So I didn't get a chance to see it. So this is the first time I got to see holes 3 and 4, the new holes 3 and 4. All right. One thing that was talked about on social media, because it was in the video that Spin TV put out, was the final round or the final interview with Simon after he played his round yesterday and he was featured. He said that in asking about 3 and 4, and he said he didn't care for those holes. And I don't know if he said, I don't like them, or how he worded it exactly, but he didn't have a glowing review. And not that we expect every hole to get a glowing review every single time. There was a lot of conversation about it, about specifically, I talked about it last night. I talked about the challenge of what we see on hole number 4 being 299 feet, and yesterday I think carding 5 birdies. Today, still 299 feet, and it carded, I want to say 7 birdies if my memory serves me correctly. I'm going to read them. They get it. Calvin Heimberg, Nate Perkins, Isaac Robinson, AJ Carey, Ezra Robinson, Jordan Castro, and Chris Pinniger. All right? 7 people out of the entire field taking birdies. 299 feet, 4 mandos, 2 double mandos, or maybe sort of a triple mando. I'm still a little confused by that. I can understand how somebody doesn't love that. And I know Hannah and Jamie talked about why the changes happened. I know Andy Duvall talked about why the changes happened. He said that he felt like maybe they were also going to be spectator friendly and such. I let me disclaim and disclose, I love tight wooded golf, probably more than most. All right, I'm a huge fan of it. I love good tight fairways, whatever the case might be. All right, with those mandatories and the shot that they're trying to force to throw down that hallway on hole 4, it seems as much as they're trying to force it, I also wonder how much are they handcuffing the players. All right, people are reluctant to go after it. And if I recall, I did look earlier, I think 4 out of the 7 birdies today that came on that hole came from outside the circle. So that tells you the people that are getting the birdies made a great putt, which is good for them. But they're not, people aren't getting even close to the hole in the first place, and it's 299 feet. Everyone has a different style, just like you may or may not like different commentators and different analysts and sideline reporters or whatever the case might be. Everyone's got their style. Something about 299 feet and not seeing more than 6% of the field birdieing it just doesn't feel right to me. So that's what I'll say on hole 4. It was interesting to hear, most people would say Simon's pretty unfiltered. It's his German upbringing and heritage, but he's relatively unfiltered, and he really and he wasn't bashing, or he wasn't I think over the top in what he said, but he was very blunt when he just said he definitely didn't care for those. And then I'm going to segue right into other course stuff before I get into the media. The other course stuff would be, we now see in person or not in person, I'm sorry, in a live perspective and in the post-production, we see exactly where the pillars are placed. Guardians, soldiers, mozzarella sticks, whatever you call them. All right, I know everybody's got a name for them. You see them placed everywhere, and same thing. I feel like those can either rub everyone wrong, or not everyone. They can either rub you wrong, or you really like them. A lot of people say, what's the difference if those were trees that were there? Is it aesthetics? We see on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, we've got elevated baskets from time to time that have, some kind of advertising on them. There's no advertising on these. If these had fake ivy or real ivy wrapped around them, would somebody feel better about it? If they were, I'm just going to make up a number and say, if each one of those pillars represented a $5,000 sponsor, would that excite us more? Maybe. You'd have to be the judge of that. The players would have to be the judge of that. I know I personally, from a design perspective, I understand making holes a little bit tougher, and I understand that straddling around things is part of our game. They're not my favorite. That's what I'll say. They are not my favorite to be there. And then aesthetically, they're still not my favorite. Take it for what it is. All right. And my opinion may mean nothing. Everyone else, has their feelings about them. That's how I feel about them. All right. I'm not sure what some of the most clever names are out there for them, but I'm going to follow that right into, and it's a perfect segue from course to media. Arby's, the roast beef place with the big cowboy hat. They have lately been posting, and we've seen other players around the world talking about how they've gotten a Firebird with an Arby's note and logo on it. Or there's a note with the disc and a logo. And that's been kind of going around social media for the last couple weeks, I would say. And it's been really funny. Everyone's kind of wondering. There's a note about having the meat or meat hook, and I forget exactly the phrasing of it. You could go research it. It's out there, and it's really funny. Today, if you go out to Arby's and if you go out to their Facebook and I believe also their Twitter feed, they actually reference the USDGC. And again, I'm not fancy enough, like if I were with Johnny, to pull this up, but if you go out to their feed, and I'll put it out there myself on Facebook tonight. They took their mozzarella sticks, and I'm gonna find it actually, so I do it full justice as best as I can. They took their mozzarella sticks and put them on a green, and then reference them and the USDGC. Again, we're talking about this chain. Love or hate them, you say whatever you want. That's fine. It's fast food, so on and so forth. Clearly, I'm no hardcore advocate for vegan or healthy eating every single day. But they literally have a disc golf basket. They have a couple of cups behind them, and they have 5 mozzarella sticks around this disc golf basket. And it says, normally we're down with adding mozzarella sticks, but this is a little much. Hashtag USDGC. Here's my call out to you. We talk about corporate sponsors. We talk about sponsors outside of disc golf. We've seen people like Keen and Adidas and a few beverage companies. We've seen people get involved to some degree and dabble in disc golf. I think it's awesome. All right, you guys can, again, talk about how you do or don't love specifically that chain or some other chain that's out there. That's fine. But the fact that we have the attention, to some degree, of Arby's at a corporate level, that they're able, or at least at their social media level, to be able to put out there something like that. They literally hashtagged USDGC. And again, I'm going to read it. Normally, we're down with adding mozzarella sticks, but this is a little much. Hashtag USDGC. I'm sorry, I love it. I love it from a marketing and from just the big picture that it presents to us. And I went out to their site. I'll admit I haven't been there in a while, but I went out to their site and said, thank you guys for supporting disc golf. I mean, even if they gave $0 to the sport, just the fact that they're mentioning USDGC, the fact that they're using their platform in a semi-serious, semi-joking capacity to have any reference to disc golf or one of our largest events of the year, I don't know how we don't think that's a win. All right, so I thought that was pretty cool. And in fact, their own tiny little poke at the mozzarella sticks and at the USDGC. I guess the one remaining question is, and I think a few of you are asking on the board, is who's the person, who's the man or woman that works at Arby's that has enough power and influence and humor to take what we have going on in disc golf and then also bring it to their media team and say, hey, we can continue to get involved and win over some fans. So Arby's has been part of an event or two in Texas. I know there is at a little bit more of a local level. Arby's has been involved down there. Arby's is not in every state. I realize that. I'm going to move on from the topic, but nonetheless, I think it's very cool. Some people are saying that they've eaten at the Arby's in Rock Hill in the last few years. So get out there, try it. I don't know. But thank you, Arby's, is really my takeaway on that. All right. Before I get any further into media, the media man himself, one of our most influential, smooth-talking, positive voices, super warm and embracing, Ian Anderson, CCDG, celebrating a birthday today. That's what the Facebooks told me. So quick shout out to Ian. Happy birthday to you. All right. I'm going to say this just like I did in the chat room, which is another point, but I'm going to say this just like I did in the chat room earlier today. Any comments that myself or Johnny V reference when it comes to the live broadcast, people should know that comes from a positive and opportunistic vantage point. We want them to succeed. We want to succeed. We want to see what they're doing well, maybe anything they don't do well, if there's anything, and we want to grow and learn from that as well. They talk about competition, how it breeds excellence, performance. What's the phrase? All of those things are part of what's happening here. We clearly don't see a lot of people jumping into the live realm. It's not cheap. It's not glamorous. It's and it's very tough to try and pull off. And we're far from perfect. So far from perfect. And some days we're just flat out not that great. So whenever somebody else does jump into it, we've seen 3 or 4 or 5 other entities come into disc golf, dabble, and then get out. Meanwhile, we see post-production companies popping up every other week, it feels like. So anything I say, I just want everybody to know that. And people are like, oh no, here it comes. No, I'm just saying as a disclaimer, I don't even feel like I have to say it, but I will. I want people to know that there's not spite, there's not any kind of ill will or anything. In fact, I know a handful of people on the crew. Of course, I know all the commentators in Jamie and Kenny and Hannah. We've worked with Jamie and Hannah and Christine Jennings, who I know on a personal level. So I want to make sure that that is very clear as I kind of dissect a few of the details. Similarly, if I get nitty gritty, that's because I feel like we're getting to that point. We're arriving at the idea of, hey, the groundwork and the basics have been laid. Let's see where we can start getting a little nitpicky and maybe take it up a notch. And so, and that goes for us as well. People always give us suggestions, and if it's something that's within our scope that we can do, but of course, we love hearing it. I think the term is constructive criticism, but everybody also throws around criticism a little differently. So, first of all, quickly, I already mentioned Spin TV. I think it was 8 or 9 a.m. Central, had the round 1 front 9 out. I don't know exactly what time the back 9 came out, but I know I said last night during this very show that if they could, it's awesome to have the rounds out before the next round happens, if you can. And I understand every event is a little different, and sometimes that's not possible. I'm the first to admit that, of course. We all know that. It can be really tough depending on the timing and depending on what the workflow is. What time did you film the round? What time could the commentators lay down the commentary? And then how many people do you have there? Because more often than not, if it's, I know CCDG, Jomez, myself, sometimes when you're at an event with 3 people and that's your film crew, you're editing all night, you're getting commentary in the morning, then you have to go out and film again. The few things that you need to wrap up after you've already gotten that commentary simply just don't have the turnaround to be able to get up before you're out filming again in that afternoon. So I understand all of that. But they had it out very early. I thought that was cool. Somebody can probably tell me maybe when that they got the back 9 out, but they got out, at least the front 9 out very early. I thought that was awesome. I think Jomez round came out probably during the middle of the round today. If anyone can confirm that, I think that's what I saw. Again, it's great that they got it out. I would be curious to know what you guys thought of the coverage. We have very much an expectation of excellence that we see out of Jomez. I assume, I didn't get to see it, I assume that it was great. I guess I wouldn't think anything otherwise. But I also heard that the spin quality was amazing. And I'm not saying that in any surprise fashion. They've obviously put out good work. They have for a number of years now. They've sometimes used the backbone of Jomez. They've had the backbone of Central Coast in times. They've had various teams kind of behind the scenes and then put a Spin TV wrapping on it. But in this case, it is really none of the U.S. people, and I believe it is all people that were brought from overseas. So Greg says that he watched both, and they were equally great. So clearly with Jamie Thomas and Ken Climo on the spin coverage, you're probably getting a little bit different feel than what you're going to get from when you hear Sexton and Big Germ. So a lot of people, I'd love to know what you guys think. Put that out there. Please let me know. I'll have to read that, catch up a little bit later. I may be able to go back and go check some of that out as well. So, but they were out, and I'd love to know what you guys think of it. Now, moving into quickly the live component, all right? The live component being backed by Fulcrum, being obviously behind the pay-per-view wall, there were a lot of comments online about how great it was. And I will absolutely echo that exact sentiment, right? I thought it was amazing. They had very few. I don't even know if I could think of 5 if I had to go back. I'd have to actually go back and really analyze. They had very few technical glitches that were at least noticeable. Now, let me be the first to say, they probably had technical glitches. We just didn't see them. And if that's the case, then that's all you can ask for. I will admit that over at Smashbox, we have plenty of technical glitches and or problems seen, unforeseen, and maybe preventable, maybe not. But we're getting better and better at hiding or covering up or recovering from them instantly. So if they had any issues, it didn't seem obvious to us as to what any issues were. I thought it was great. I cannot say that enough. I thought it was great. I thought that the camera work, both throw and catch, seemed pretty good. They had a reaction cam and or a roaming camera or 2 that could get extra shots. That is huge. That helps from a strategic standpoint, because you need your throw camera person and your catch camera person. Once the tee shots are done, they all need to get up and move. And so if you have that extra person or 2 that can kind of get the other action without having to get up and move, that's when you don't have the, as much of the people walking down the fairways, so on and so forth. And I'll give you a little insider tip from us. Often after all the tee shots are thrown, if we don't have that 3rd or 4th cameraman, that's why we're coming back to the booth and or going to commercial, is because our cameramen are getting up and moving. And nobody, we learned that very, very early on, nobody wants to see a shaky camera walking down a fairway. You want to avoid it at all costs. And so the alternative to that, for the most part for us, has been, that's when you come to the booth, whether it's Nate and Val or me and someone or whomever, you come back to the booth and or you're going to get some kind of a commercial. They didn't need to do that. And that brings me to my next point. I think there were 0 commercials. And I think a lot of people were kind of concerned, saying, are we going to see nonstop commercials out of the 3 or 4 or 5 major sponsors of the event and nothing but them? And I cannot say enough that I thought it was pretty incredible that we had very few, we had 0 commercials. Now, I also feel like that has a slight drawback. And what I mean by that is, I may not want a commercial every hole, or 2 or 3 commercials every hole, or multiple times a hole. I understand that. But I also feel like having that commercial break for 30 or 60 seconds throughout the round helps everybody. It helps your cameramen take a breath, to reset, to get into position, to just mentally check out for a few moments. It helps your booth do the exact same thing. Mentally check out or refresh or hit reset in their head, just even if it's for 15 seconds, where you're not worried about talking, you're not even thinking, you are just simply taking a deep breath, maybe catching a little bit of water, whatever the case might be. All right. I know this sounds stupid, I paid $10 to watch. I still wish there were a couple of commercials in there today. And I thought about where and when, even if there were just 4. All right. On the bottom of your screen, you saw Wingate, Coca-Cola, Comporium, and Disc Golf Center, or Innova, or all of those. Maybe it was 5. If there were 30 to 60 seconds from each of those 5 sponsors, I would have been great with it. I would have loved it. I feel like there's almost an element of professionalism and legitimacy when it's like when you do cut to a commercial. Now, again, I hear you loud and clear when you say, well, I may not want 2 or 3 commercials every hole. I get that. However, I feel like if in a 3.5 hour broadcast, we hear 5 30-second commercials from the biggest sponsors of the tournament, I also don't think that is out of line either. So, heck, we're watching post-production coverage that has more commercials than what we saw today. So I might be in the minority. You may not agree with my logic, and that's totally fine. But I will be the first to say, I wish that break, that reset, and also from a professional side, I wish there would have been, because as you guys are maybe even saying in the board a few times, it's also 30 seconds they don't need to fill. All right, to think on your feet and to be prepared for those 3.5, 4 hour rounds, to always have something that you're trying to be, we'll say, insightful and or professional about. It's more challenging than most people realize. So that's my take. I want commercials. I hope you're listening. Fulcrum, Innova, all you guys. And again, I'm sure plenty of you are saying, I didn't see a single commercial, and I'm good with that, and I can understand that. But I would have loved to just see a couple. Again, that reset for everybody could go a long way, and I think I beat that to death. All right, let's move over to the drone. I kind of asked on the board, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but what were your takes on the drone? The shots that they could go to, the shots that we saw. I think we saw literally one drive out of Drew Gibson that actually came in from the drone. They left it on the drone shot while he was actually throwing. I'd love to know what you guys think of that. Is that the sprinkles? Is that the cherry on top of a good broadcast? Was it necessary? Would you have felt unfulfilled if those shots weren't there? Does it add to the professionalism of the broadcast? I'd like to know what you guys think about that. I have some mixed feelings. Overall, I like it. Let me be very clear. I do like that shot is available. I don't know. I don't think they overused it. I know some people said that they did. I don't personally think that was the case. My one question is it worth whatever it costs them, be the event or Fulcrum Media? You're talking about someone that clearly knows what they're doing. You're talking about bringing that in as another camera shot. Is that worth that person? And maybe someone puts up the drone, they fly it for 10 minutes, it gets used, and then that person goes into doing other things. I'm sure they do to some degree. They fill another role. All right. I think about, from our perspective, and I think it's fair to say, outside of my physical stature, we run a pretty lean ship, all right? Pretty lean crew. We've got 2 or 3 cameramen. We've got Johnny pressing buttons, and then either 1 or 2 booth people, and maybe or maybe not someone on the sidelines. Like, I feel like those are the basics. And even the sideline reporter concept is relatively new. So we run a very, very lean crew. And some have said, Mo from the Inside Line and Central Coast, and Joe Mez, who he's worked with them, he used to work at ESPN. He's flat out said that Johnny V, with my buddy with Smashbox, that Johnny V does the job of anywhere from 2 to 5 people when he's doing what he's doing. So sometimes things go, they don't go perfectly, or a shot can be missed, or a switch, or a whatever might be missed. We're on a shaky camera for a second longer than we should have been, that kind of stuff. But we run a pretty lean ship or crew. And then I think about, okay, a drone operator, what does that mean? What are the other functions of that person? And is that something that's worth having there? Again, I like it. I think it's great. I don't think it makes or breaks a broadcast, but I definitely think it's great. So I'd be curious to know what you guys think as to the drone. And they introduced it last year. That was the first time we saw it. I thought it was cool then. I still think it's cool. I'd be curious to see how much more it does or doesn't get implemented. And of course, my worrisome approach on my end is always, How far away is it? And how loud is it? Can the players hear it? And would they care if they could hear it? We typically didn't hear it. Let me strike that. We saw it barely a little bit during some actual putts on 10, where it was kind of hovering above them while they were putting, and then kind of hovering above as they were walking down the fairway of 17, and then maybe or maybe not during a drive of 18. Those are the times where I think that it was maybe heard by the players. I'm not sure if any of the players could hear it or if they even cared, or if it was just like any other noise. You know, when you're out on the course on 17 and 18, you're hearing, and on hole 5, you're hearing the water fountain going the whole time. So maybe a little bit of a buzz up in the air, you don't even notice it. So those are some of the things that I think about from the drone perspective. Excuse me. I'm going to move next into I don't call it another new feature. Kristin Jennings. We saw her jump on the microphone today. We saw her as a sideline reporter. I reached out to her. I complimented her during the show. I complimented her after the fact when I chit-chatted with her a little bit. I said she did really well. She said that she felt more comfortable, of course, as the day went on, and I think that was kind of apparent. The first 1 or 2 times, your timing, you're worried about, are you looking at the camera? Are you looking at the player? What are they going to say? Do you have your questions in mind? Trust me, been there and done all of that. So I give her huge props, huge kudos. She said she's gotten a little bit of support and a little bit of direction and help from Hannah, who of course has been in a similar role and situation last year. And again, from a technology perspective, when they threw to it, whether it was a piece that was cut together a little bit earlier, or if it was when they went live at the very end with her, I thought she knocked it out of the park. So great addition, great to see. I think she will continue to do well. I said to her, is there anything else you wanted to share with anybody? And after the fact, I want to say exactly what she said about that. She said, Albert Tom is really tall. We had issues getting both of us in frame. She thought that was pretty funny. And she just said, I'm also just excited to provide coverage of the action tomorrow. So huge props to her. Nice work out there. Please keep at it. I mean, we sometimes just throw people into roles and hope they swim instead of sink. And she definitely did what she needed to do today. It was really incredible to see. And again, huge props to her. She'll only get better with time. Maybe we'll see her more in that role. Maybe she'll have more interest in taking on that kind of a role. Trust me, I've seen the meme. You don't need to send it to me tonight. I've seen the meme about the the sideline reporters in other sports, and then there's me. I think it's fair to say that Kristin maybe falls in line a little bit more with some of those other reporters, and I'm okay with that. But what really matters is the content that she gave us today, and from that perspective, it was a home run. So I wish her the best. You can follow her on Instagram. She's sponsored by Innova. She's out of Ohio. She's been traveling around playing a lot of golf. I know she had 1,000 rated round last weekend. She had a great performance in the 2018 AM Worlds and has been playing pro ever since. And I think we're going to continue to see great things from her. So make sure you go out. You can find her on Instagram. And I'm sure we're going to see her more on the live broadcast as it moves forward. All right. So I'm going to then move into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts in terms of, Carver John says no spoilers. Nuts and bolts in terms of the other 3. All right, the 3 we knew about going into today, and everyone was, myself included, was like, when are we going to see Kenny? What's going on with Kenny? Well, Climo came in at the turn as they were heading into the back 9. So I believe it was right on hole 10 when he actually showed up. He joined them in the booth. That was, of course, joining Hannah along with Jamie Thomas. And I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't think I've seen or heard anyone that didn't appreciate his efforts. I think he did great, and I'm going to go ahead and say that. There's no surprise by that. Kenny is as successful as he is as a 12-time world champion and a 5-time USDGC or 3-time USDGC. Am I giving him too many? USDGC champion. because he is a student of the game and now a master of the game, he thinks about everything. And when somebody's just getting up and throwing, Kenny is thinking about things going on right then. He's thinking about things that happened last year. He's thinking about things that happened 5 years ago. There are very few people in the world that can dissect and analyze disc golf the way Ken Climo can. And again, those are all reasons why he is one of the most decorated players of all time and arguably the greatest of all time. I still put him in that category as the greatest of all time. And there's no surprise that he is able to articulate and to share his knowledge, his information, his background, and his thoughts, especially at this course. One that he arguably knows better than any other player. There's a few people that have played the event a couple more times than him. No one has won it more than he has. And Kenny knows golf. Kenny is golf. And he's obviously been sidelined with an injury. Some people are asking, well, why don't we see him? Why don't we hear more from him? He's been sidelined with an injury, and he's been really focused on his family. He's got the newest member of his family is his daughter, who is 4, 5, maybe 6 years old. So he's been really active, really present with that child. He has 2 other children. He was married a few years ago, and he's with his injury, he's just kind of somewhat removed himself from the game in the last few years. And I would love to see him. We've kind of always joke about, well, it's now become a running joke about having him on Smashbox on Tuesday nights. And we've talked about it for years now. The problem is Kenny plays poker on Tuesday nights. Like, poker is the Tuesday night thing, just as much as Smashbox podcast is to us on Tuesday nights. Kenny's poker is Tuesday nights, and like us, it doesn't seem to ever fluctuate or bend or alter from that. So we've never had him on there, but we've talked about it with him, and I think you're still going to see that happen. But Kenny has been a little bit more removed. I feel like he's kind of getting back in the swing of things. I think you're going to see him probably playing, maybe even as early as next year. I think you're going to see him, if his injury continues to heal up, I think we might see him. Right now it's all about longevity and being able to play an entire weekend or an entire tournament. He's, kind of said, I've been out there for a round, I've been out there to play, and things are fine, but if the next day I feel terrible, he said, anytime you're talking about a multi-round or a multi-day tournament, he's like, that's just not going to work. So that's why we haven't seen him competing in any tournaments, and that's why he really had expectations of only playing one round at the event this weekend. And in fact, he wasn't even planning on necessarily playing the whole round. He was hoping to, and then he got all the way through yesterday, all the way up until 18. So yeah, that's where he's at. It was great to see him join. I felt like he was a great addition. The one thing, again, if I'm being critical or nitpicky is maybe a better word. I don't think critical is the right word. I'm going to say nitpicky. I don't love the couch setup. If it were the after show like this, and we were talking about the day, I would love it. If it were the post round stuff, so on and so forth, I like for the actual play calling, I like a booth or a table or a bench of some sort like that. I guess again, they're going out on a little bit on a limb. They're doing something different, and I applaud them for trying it. I'm sure plenty of people love the look and the feel and whatnot of the couch. I personally am just not a fan. I'm not going to quite quote who said it, but someone did say, and I won't take credit for it. They said, "When's the last time you watched a professional sporting event, the main event, be called or broadcasted from a couch?" And I thought that was just an interesting way to put it. So I kind of concur with that. Again, after show, post-round show, a nightly recap. If there were a bunch of people sitting around on a couch, we see that all the time. NFL and analysts and things of that nature. I see all of those things, and I'm good with that because I feel like that's the right vibe. But during the actual broadcast, I'd love to see them at a desk or a table of some sort. That's all. All right. I think Hannah was prepared. There was never a doubt about that. She was prepared. She likes to give you some details. She clearly does a ton of research. Like, she'll go out and look for old interviews. She looks for through written stuff. She has audio references. She's so prepared. All right, she is the most prepared we have in disc golf, and I give her a ton of credit for that. In fact, I've been challenged, rightfully so, to say, hey, maybe if you did a little bit more prep from time to time, and I can agree with that. Normally, like, I don't say like Kenny, but I usually just kind of rely on my experience and my background of being places and knowing these people the way that I have. Hannah, actual research, all right, hardcore research, and then documents it. I love it. Jamie, I thought was great. He was kind of that middleman that kind of had to keep the, I want to say keep the peace. He kept the show moving. He had to incorporate Hannah and what she was saying. He also had to include Kenny, and he was the moderator, and he provided his own insight. I felt like he gave us the right amount of content. I felt like he directed the show really well. I felt like everything was great on that end. And then, of course, I already touched on Kenny, and I thought Kenny was great as well. So all of those things, big fan of today. I consider them knocking it out of the park. I thought they did really well. It's funny that we can get nitpicky and say, okay, it's an aesthetic thing, or, oh, I don't like the shirt someone's wearing, or whatever. Like, if those are your biggest problems, then you did a lot of other things really, really well. And as someone, Ray, just said on the board, it's great to occasionally hear Jamie chime in with that lefty perspective. We were in a unique situation having the two lefties on the card, and then even the commentator also being left-handed, or one of the commentators being left-handed. I think that's great. Disc Golf Comedy is out there. I know Disc Golf Comedy also super chatted. You're just using me for a free pair of shoes? Is that what you want to win? Another quick plug. Every $2 that you super chat gives you one entry to win a free pair of Keens tonight. All right? Every $2 gets you one entry into a free pair of Keens. If you super chatted $20, you have 10 entries. That's some good math. And I'm going to have at least one additional prize. And I'm going to let you guys choose from some cool items. I went with a little bit of a Innova theme here. I know Chad wants to buy the Mamba outright, so that might not be available for you guys to win. I've got a double stamped AVR and X out. I handpicked this from the Innova factory a couple years ago. All right, that's still is one of my favorite parts about going to the USDGC, is allowing vendors and players and certain people to be able to come into the Innova factory and handpick orders. Last time I was there, I may have picked up like 75 or so Avery Jenkins destroyers that all have swirls and marble to them. The last best 75 that they had. I don't know, I may have heard that Paul's name was going on the next set of destroyers. Speaking of destroyers, I've got this one. This is an event I ran a couple years ago, 2017, the Greater Milwaukee Open. That might be available for you to win. The cool flag stamp and a Nintendo reference for all of you guys. Or as we saw Champion Rock 3s come out, and or Paul McBeth Champion Rock, there was a whole hubbub about that years ago. I think I'm at my quota for using hubbub, as I did last night, but this might be in the running. So whatever, we'll see. We'll see how those super chats continue to go, and if they do well, then the better they do, the more stuff I can give away. All right. Moving on, I don't have a ton left on my list. We've talked about the drone. The stream quality I thought was great. I think a lot of people definitely reference that. I feel like if you had any issues with the stream or the actual video, it was probably on your end. As far as I was concerned, I had no glitches, no problems on the day. Here's my one pro tip. If you pause it at any point, if you're watching and you want to go to the bathroom or you want to take your own TV timeout, and you hit pause on the player, and then when you come back, if it's been more than a few seconds, if you hover just to the right of the volume button, that's when a little button will pop up, and it only does it when you hover over it, and it'll bring you right back to the fully caught up to live. So if you just hit play, it'll continue playing where you left off. But if you want to go and say, I want to just get caught right up and I'll skip over those 30 or 50 or 2 minutes or whatever, those seconds, you can then just hit the button that pops up, and that will bring you, and a little button will pop up and it'll say live, and that will bring you all the way to the very end where the live is. Okay. So thank you to Sergio in Wisconsin. He gave me that tip today because I could not find how to get caught up at any point. So thank you, Ronald Harkey, for the super chat, giving himself five entries to win a free pair of shoes and or a disc. So thank you, Ronald. Okay. From my list, we've covered Chris Clemons and some of the notes with him. Christine Jennings, again, thank you for your time, Christine, to give me a few insights of how your day went as you were out there working the sideline reporting. We appreciate it. We talked about the good shots, some of the bad shots that we're seeing, at least on the lead card. Another unfortunate break I had in my notes from way earlier in the day. The rollaway on hole 10. What a heartbreaker for Drew Gibson. Most of you saw it live probably, but Drew threw, he was going for the eagle. It was right after Kenny joined the broadcast. He was going for the eagle. He throws it all the way to the pin, and then right by the throw pink basket there, it hits the rocks, or should I say the bricks that surround the pin. It hits that spot and gets up and rolls out of bounds. Of course, there's bad breaks everywhere. Every tournament, you get them. You're inbounds by an inch, you're out of bounds by an inch, whatever the case might be. It's just too bad that, unfortunately, that one cost Drew big time because of that. But still, finished with a really solid round. So, looking forward to tomorrow. I'm going to reiterate yet again. This won't probably be the last time, but I want to reiterate tomorrow's lead card. As we also watched Kelvin Heimberg make a little bit of a push and then fall off late today. But the lead card, let me give it to you. Chris Clemons, 16 under par. Nathan Queen, 15 under par. Back-to-back lefties there, both shooting 8 under on the day. Nico LaCastro, who said he hit the basket on the first shot of the day, hole number 1, the downhill. He shoots a 10 under par. Very impressive. Also, got one of the few birdies that we saw on hole 3B today. And then Eagle McMahon, who seems like he's always a contender everywhere he goes, of course. He shot that 7 under par, and that puts him at 13 overall. On the chase card, where Jomez will be filming, that's going to give you Drew Gibson, James Conrad, Chris Dickerson, and Alex Russell. So that's who you should see, I believe, on the chase card tomorrow. If I'm looking at things correctly, yes, that's who you'll see on that chase card. I saw a moment ago someone said, too bad I'm banned. I am not banned from the USDGC. They're just, with us not being there in a live capacity for the last 3 years now, 17, 18, and 19, I was not there. And then they are a little bit tighter when it comes to the controls of the media for post-production. And it really, to put it out there, and a number of tournaments are this way, what they really are trying to avoid, I know you're saying that's a joke, but it is worth mentioning, what they're trying to avoid, which we've seen at a lot of tournaments, is, and Jonathan Poole, the tournament director, told me this, they have long-standing sponsors. They have Coca-Cola, of course, Innova, who's put in literally over millions of dollars, Comporium, so on and so forth. They understandably want to protect those sponsors so that someone like myself wouldn't go out, and I'll make up a name, wouldn't go out and then get coverage that's presented to you by Prodigy or Dynamic Disc or Whammo. All right, so that is why you don't see more crews out there, because in order to do that, they would usually need the funding or the backing or the support from other companies, and they're trying to protect the sponsors that they do have. So I understand it. It's unfortunate because then I feel like we are missing out on opportunities to get even more coverage. I know that if I could round up a couple of sponsors that could at least let me go down there and break even and work all week, I would be more than happy to do so. But unfortunately, that's just not how they're constructed. Now, being here with you guys for the last 2 nights, I got to tell you, I need to find a way to be more involved at almost any cost next year. It pains me to be here in Wisconsin, even though the weather's better. I feel like a show like this is something I should be doing with a co-host right here, or with a special guest right here. Chris Clemons rings a bell, comes to mind tonight. Obviously, any of the players, any of the organizers, like, I feel as if this type of show and situation should be happening, and I should be doing it from somewhere on site or at the host hotel, and then doing this exact kind of thing, but with more interaction from another person. All right. That's what I would like to do. Maybe there's a Patreon or a sponsor way I could get at that, that kind of format next year. That's what I'd love to do. Oh, Mike Ramstack, I appreciate it. Just down the road. Like, Mike, you're like 20 Simon throws away from me. Thank you for the super chat, as I know you're coming after a pair of keens. Free pair of keens. You want to see the code? I'll take this out and just flip it. Okay, I'm not gonna. Chris says that I should be part of the broadcast, and I'll be the first to admit there's a little. Trying to get a word away from the word interesting. There's a little bit of. We're not going to call it politics, but it is. If you think about it, Smashbox does certain things. We're live. This is a Fulcrum production. This is a USDGC production. And you see people like Jamie Thomas, who's leading the live commentary. He's worked with us at Smashbox. He's worked with us on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. You see him now filling that role there. Hannah, I think her first live ever was working with us last year at the World Championships, and then went and worked at the USDGC under the USDGC umbrella. Same exact thing transpired this year. It's kind of funny how our crews share, interact, mingle, do all of those types of things, and I think that's all part of the early stages here of Disc Golf Media. If they had asked me to be part of it in some capacity, I don't know what that would have been, and we would have had to have a conversation about what that really means. I mean, understandably, just like earlier in the year with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, there was a conversation about if Johnny and I are going to be involved with the live broadcast, is it one or the other, or is it both? And at that point, are we branded with our identity being Smashbox? Or, could we individually be out for hire? It just can create some, I'll say, goofy scenarios that I don't know if they're going to get more muddy before they clear up, or if they're already in line with getting more cleared up moving into the future. But those are all things that we have to think about from a media perspective. And then there's also a branding issue. If you're used to seeing, I feel like seeing and hearing Jamie Thomas do spin related things, I think he's relatively synonymous with that. He's been very active with spin. He was one of their very early employees, or contractors, I should say, and he did a lot of stuff with them for a lot of years. He's now with Alta World, but to have him in that role, maybe not such a big deal. But when you have someone that's traditionally, we'll say, a Smashbox entity as part of a different production, that's when I think, same thing if you all of a sudden heard Ian's commentary on a Jomez video, you might be like, huh, what's going on? And as much as we're all friends and we're kind of all in the trenches together, there's branding and there's consistency as well. So kind of a long-winded comment to how the media works. But I'll just tell you, there's a lot that's always going on behind the scenes. Some of it's shareable, some of it's not. Some of it's grand and great and amazing and inspiring. And some of it's quite can be quite mucky and muddy and demoralizing and terrible. So everywhere in between. All right. I gotta stop saying all right as well. I'm picking up on my own words here that I try to avoid. Anyways is a great one to avoid. It's not a word. Somebody told me that at a broadcast. I've tried to eliminate it ever since. But anyways is not a word. All right. So put that one in your back pocket. what I'd like to do now, if possible, and this may or may not work out too well, is I would love to officially, we'll say, catch up with things that you guys would like to share with me and or ask me. And I'm going to try and rifle through them. We'll give it a few minutes. I feel like we're already at like roughly 90 minutes or more. I want to give it a few minutes. I want to rifle through those things. If we're ready for, if I feel like I was just sent the list, possibly. Oh, that's going to be tough to pull from and do a random. Maybe not. If I can, I may even pull for the giveaways here tonight before we let you go. Yes, as I'm looking at the super chats that came in, I want to thank Marcus, who seemingly put that all together for me. It's a good-looking spreadsheet, so I really appreciate that. And I'm going to be, I think, with what he's given me, assuming not many more or any more come in, I will be able to give those away sooner than later, before we close out tonight, once we get all the super chats added up. So thank you. Again, free pair of Keens and at least one disc. I'll say if we can get to, I don't know, a few more super chatters, then maybe we could give away at least 2 of the discs, but I'm glad to do so. Here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to rifle through these quickly for you guys. If you got anything for me, please go ahead and put them in the comments if you so choose. Cool One asks, Terry, we all know JVD has a day job. Are you going to branch off on your own for disc golf coverage now? No. No more than I already do. What I mean by that is roughly 12 to 15 events this year. We were live with Smashbox TV, or at least in the last few years we have been, somewhere in that neighborhood. You had all the Pro Tour stops. We've had the World Championships. We've had Glass Blown Open. We've covered live the last event of the Next Gen finale. A couple years ago, we covered Nantucket live. So 10 to 15 live events a year. If I'm not live, it is all but guaranteed that same weekend I would love to be doing some form of post-production. So I don't think I'll be branching out any more or less than what I've done in the past. And usually the dividing line is live or not. I guess minus these little nightly recaps. The dividing line is usually if it's live. If it's live, it's generally Johnny and I plus other people, and it's a Smashbox TV thing that him and I are doing as kind of the official organizers and the lead of that. If it's post-production, it will be myself, and then I'm usually recruiting anywhere from 1 to 3 more people to help in a post-production world. And I'm very blessed that I can be active in both. It has its drawbacks because I'm not 100% to one or the other, but I'm also very blessed that I dabble in both. And then if the right project came along where I'm doing something in between or something that's not those things, I'm certainly open to the idea as well. I mean, I run tournaments and other stuff as well. So hopefully that answered you. All right, I'm going to move up just slightly. Uh-oh, Chad's getting in on the action. Appreciate it, Chad. Who's checking dictionaries? If you say it, then it's a word. Well, to be fair, I'd like to eliminate all the filler words, too many cliches that are also usually just fillers. And then if something's genuinely not a word, I'm trying to definitely get rid of that. And every single week somebody is correcting me on maybe a pronunciation that I may or may not nail. And I swear to you, I'd be the first to admit, all of my life I've said especially. And somebody once, in a not so pleasant tone, said there's no X, it's especially, when I try and over enunciate, it's especially. And all of my life I've said especially. I own it, and I told my daughter about it a few weeks ago, and then in shooting a video I said especially accidentally, and she immediately gave me the glare. My 10-year-old gave me the glare when she was recording, and I'm good with that. I should be held accountable to it. I mean, if I'm going to claim I'm in disc golf media, right? All right. Clay says, pick me? Yeah, Clay, you got to spell pick right. That's the only way you're getting picked. Give Austin Turner a shout-out for qualifying after his injuries. I'm not going to try and sound rude or callous by saying, but which injury? He is always injured, and I hope he is on a long-term path to recovery. because that's what's kept him out of most of this year. Most of you are saying, hey, where is Austin? Unfortunately, he's gone through so many different things, and I hope he's doing just fine right now. But yes, of course, huge shout out. He qualified on Monday, as did obviously 3 or 4 other gentlemen. Last night, I know I talked about Nicholas Masters qualifying. I think I saw on social media he had a rough follow-up today. So best of luck to all the Monday qualifiers. There's always an awesome story there. Are you in Johnny V's basement? No, I'm actually in my office, which I'd be embarrassed to show you the collective mess and chaos outside of the thousands of discs that are in here. Just the mess and chaos, and this is going to get gutted, and it's going to become my full-blown active studio that I want to use every single week for a multitude of things. And my 2 daughters, who are 8 and 10, are excited about the light and the cameras and everything else that are ultimately going to get set up in here. I mean, they're 8 and 10. They need to be YouTubing, right? They're definitely ready for it. So I am not in Johnny V's basement. We have up a few more super chats. Appreciate it. Chad, as I said, appreciate it. Anybody in chat watch the live stream? How was the video quality? We talked about that a little earlier. Jason, others can chime in. I thought it was great. The one thing I had on my list that I accidentally skipped over is I hate. This is a legitimate gripe. I don't know of an official chat board. And by that, we have one. If you go to UDisc Live, and I believe right underneath it on UDisc Live, it says USDGC chat. I'm going to go there now and confirm. Or I know I was given the link. Yes, there's a UDisc chat. And we had 25 or so people in there today, for the most part. Myself, Johnny V, I think Bobby Brown was in there. It felt like it was mostly media people. Robert McCall was in there for a while. Sarah Lamberson from PDGA Radio was in there. It's just, it's not fully connected to the actual browser and or the video, and we're just spoiled by having that. And it's great. I invite everyone to come join it tomorrow. Hopefully we get a lot more people in there. It was awesome, but that's if I had a legitimate complaint, and I mentioned it, I beat it to death last night. We have that community sense and feeling, just like we do on this tonight. People interacting and chatting with one another and or the host, if it's possible. I just feel like it's so valuable to have. And so I was disappointed that we didn't have one. I even caught Jamie saying, well, leave a note in the YouTube comments or leave a note in the comments. And I was like, what comments? Where are you talking? And it becomes something that's easy just to say out of habit, but I'm not sure where he was referring to. Maybe he knows of a chat board I don't know about. All right, Daryl says, I give you props on what you give to disc golf for so little return and the time you miss with your family. I couldn't do that. Thanks for all you do. You're very welcome, Daryl. I've set expectations low. Ray said he watched, I'm assuming, the live, and he said it was good. Jason, live was pretty good to watch, Daryl says. Another Ray said that I was hoping to be able to watch the back nine now, but they don't have an option to watch previous streams on their site. It's a DVR format, so unless there's some processing that's happening as we speak, I'm unsure of. I haven't gone back to try it myself, but you're supposed to be able to go back and watch it. So maybe there's some navigating you need to do. If I can find the exact details, I will gladly put it out there. But you should be able to go back and watch it, because I know you can watch it up till November 3rd or 4th is what they were talking about. You're going to be able to watch it for a month if you paid for it. I would love to see the metrics on how many people paid to watch. We kind of talked about that last night. We don't know. No one but Fulcrum and probably Innova at this point know how many people have paid. I have no idea. That's all I can say to that. Foss says, I love to mispronounce words just to tilt people. I can appreciate that. Disc Golf Comedy says, I owned a coffee shop. It's absolutely incredible how many people say espresso with an X. Yeah, espresso. Yeah, that's probably something I would say as well, without thinking about it. Yeah. I get it, just messing with you. I'm in the South, so speaking correctly isn't much of a concern here. Yeah, I didn't see any. I saw a few finger pops out there today. Terry, would you be open to being a media guru for a disc golf brand, sort of like Slick Daddy at DD? Funny enough, Bobby and I have had that conversation, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. Too late now. I know he loves his job. I think he has taken dynamic disc to a whole nother level. He is now has people working with and underneath him, and Anthony and Danny. And I think I don't want to call you an idiot, but I think you're crazy to think that DD would be where it is today without the work that Bobby has done and some of the groundwork he's laid. And by investing as heavily as they have in media and social media. With that, Bobby has his one drawback would be my one reservation as well. He's with one company. He's always doing stuff with them, which in a slightest way can be somewhat limiting. All right, he just doesn't have the freedom that I have. Now, I would say the same thing. Right now, I have all the freedom in the world to work with anybody, to do anything, to partner with any company or supporter or sponsor that wants to work with me. Smashbox made that decision after Legacy kind of supported us right off the get-go, and then we realized just how limiting that was for both Legacy and us. So I try to be a little bit more agnostic in that way. And I love so many of our companies, and I think they all do great things. Would I want to be the sole person at one company? I just can't see pinning myself down in that way. And it's not because I'm such a wild and crazy free spirit. I just feel like I can be more impactful if I don't have to necessarily toe any company line. That's how I feel. You know, if I want to openly discuss this disc or that disc or sell a disc or whatever, like, I just feel like having some of those constraints, at least within a disc golf manufacturer line, maybe a bag company, maybe isn't quite as hardcore and there's still a little bit more flexibility there. But in terms of an actual disc manufacturer, as much as I love so many of them, I don't know that I would be a good fit for one specifically. Unless there was a ridiculous check involved. And I mean, yeah, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be ridiculous. I'm not sellout. Disc golf comedy. What? Huh? Love you guys. All right. One day, Terry still needs to do a podcast from the vault, meaning my disc storage and, oh my gosh. Yes, I have a lot of discs. Your office makeover should be a vlog series. It seriously could be. That's incredible. That's a great idea. Promote UDisc chat. Yes, please go out to the UDisc chat. We were talking about it. Ray had a really interesting perspective when he posted this today. He said, I feel like it was a backstage pass. And in some regards, I'll feel a little flattered by that personally. Like, it was great. We had I feel like some people that really I'll exclude myself or otherwise, but I feel like we had some people that really know what they're talking about in that chat, and you have access to Matt and Josh from UDisc, and they're in the chat as well because they're only monitoring that. They don't have to, check in on a Disc Golf Pro Tour chat board or a Smashbox chat board. They're just checking that one chat board, and it does feel kind of probably like a backstage pass. You have access to the other diehards that are watching, and then like today, like I said, you had a few of the media crew and personnel that were very intently watching the action as well. So I thought that was cool. Dixon was there as well. Yeah, I guess he was there. Mike Gramstack with another super chat, trying to get even more tickets. Mike, simmer down. Hit the button. Hit the little super chat button 2 or 4 more times, but then simmer down. He says, I feel as much as you've done for disc golf, USDGC, they should flew you first class there to at least commentate or do what you're doing right now. It adds a lot to the story. Thanks, man. Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the kind words. Like I said, Jonathan Poole and I had a discussion or two. We did put in a bid. It was asked of us very late to put in a bid for Smashbox to host the live broadcast. They ultimately said no a few weeks ago, and then they said, hey, we're going to go with Fulcrum, and then the whole idea of pay-per-view was introduced, and we had no idea that was even on the table for anyone. So And Jonathan said, hey, I really love you here at the championships. It's going to be great. We're doing big things. We'd love to have you here. And unfortunately, that wasn't like a working compensation kind of invite. I appreciate the invite, and I would love to be there. But when I'm gone 250, 300 days a year to go to an event and not officially have any working role or capacity, and then to eat costs, it just... that's where finally I got to start drawing the line a little bit for myself. All right. Andrew Clayson said he found the chat. So please join us in that chat tomorrow. Right on UDisc, there's a little highlighted thing under there that says UDisc chat. So please find it and come join us. PDGA needs to make Terry a full-time job for doing what he's doing along with Johnny V. I don't know if you heard Johnny V go off the other night. I don't know if the PDGA is employing Johnny anytime soon, but I do appreciate it. Nonetheless, we appreciate the gesture. If I'm not out there filming and I'm not out there calling the shots, I would love to be doing interviews. I would love to be giving you guys a nightly recap. If I had the luxury or the amazing luxury of like Johnny V switching the show and pressing buttons and throwing up highlights right now, that's something I'd love to strive to. It would be amazing. And it's all about, I don't want to say how does that get monetized, but how do we break even? How do we get ahead on that when sometimes there's some sponsorship constraints as well? And I'm not trying to give you guys a sob story, but those are all things that go into the decision making and some of the troubles. Hit the box in the upper right hand corner and the play button. It will pull up a menu to select from. So there you go. So that's how you can possibly get at yesterday's footage or today's footage. Hit the button he's saying, Kurt is saying, and then you might be able to find it then. Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, we appreciate the insight, Kurt. I think people like Cool Daddy. Whoops, sorry. I think I'm almost caught up, and we'll close it out. Cool Daddy is with one company. I believe it helps the company as well. If he was able to jump around, I'm not sure he would be as effective. I totally agree. I mean, Bobby knows every in and out there is to know. I mean, he's so much more than media there. He knows, the other marketing sides. He knows some of the other business sides. He has an intimate relationship with all the different departments for different reasons. So to try and put him on the scale of 5 to 10 different manufacturers, I don't think is possible. Dare I say, every company needs a Bobby. Could I be that Bobby? But every company needs a Bobby, is what I would say to that. All right, Mike says you're 5 minutes late. Michigan disc golf courses are unlike any others. I don't know if I'd go that far. If you play in Michigan, and then you close your eyes, and somebody dropped you off in Minnesota or Wisconsin, you could be like, yeah, this looks like Michigan. We have similar topography, similar challenge in courses, similar number of courses, 300-400 courses, similar tournament scenes. I'm not knocking Michigan. I love playing there, just like I love playing in Minnesota and I love playing in Wisconsin, but I think they're all great. Hey, Amp Style, good to see you. How you doing? Hopefully you guys found the chat. Mike. Yes, if you missed the live, you can watch it later, same day. You should be able to do that out there. Correct. Levi Wilcox, and he said no live chat. Yeah, there was no official live chat attached to the stream, so that's why I say the second best option in this case, or really the best option in this case, then is the UDisc live chat. And that always happens at every event, but usually most people are active on the YouTube side. And with them not being attached to YouTube or having a standalone chat feature, that's where I feel like that's why you should go to UDisc if you want some of the chat. JP says I can't see paying $20 to $40 a month on live. That's like ordering UFC $5 a month for no regular chat. $5 a month reg for no chat coverage for sure. Why not wait for the release the next day? I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. Maybe others. JP, why are you watching me live? So there must be some value in consuming something live, because you could be watching this tomorrow or the next day, but instead you're here watching live. So I understand live's not for everybody. I'm not going to get into that conversation. It was for me. I was glued to the screen today. But clearly there's definitely value in live. It just might not be for everybody. And you're right, you can watch it tomorrow. You absolutely can. YouTube has a lot of features. A private pay-per-view doesn't. People won't randomly come across the stream in pay-per-view. You're exactly right, Ray. And some consider that's a legitimate downside. Have you tried to venture towards more cultural aspect of disc golf instead of round coverage? Because obviously Jomez and CCDG are more advanced technically for videos. You've got talent. What are you saying? My videos suck? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I would love to get into more stuff. I feel like I'm actually a really, really solid cameraman, but all of my graphics don't necessarily match that. And Jomez and CCDG and other crews have clearly taken the graphics and some of the technical aspects to the next level. I love being a cameraman, but I also feel like there's other things that I could do. Wherever that's going to put me, I don't know. We'll see. I think I talked to a random YouTuber who stops by the stream because it is trending or they search for something and get the Disc Golf Pro Tour stream. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's one of the downsides to having a pay-per-view stream. Clay says, good night. See you in Phoenix. Sounds like a plan to me. Skip weekend 20, full $40. I buy 2 discs and watch next day with no chat. Skip weekend 20, full 40. I'd buy 2 discs and watch next day. I like Jomez, but anyone else notice that their edited coverage sometimes super tightly edited, almost clipped, loses flow. Okay. I can't speak to that because honestly I don't watch any post-production footage by almost anyone ever. I'm too busy editing it and or doing other stuff. Okay, guys. I don't know if Marcus can give me a full final note. He was keeping track. I do appreciate it. I'm going to go to random.org, and that's how I'm going to ultimately select our winner. Hopefully our winners are going to be still on the board. I'm feeling good that we will do for sure the shoes, and then I'm going to reach out to the winner, the second winner. Actually, let's do the runner-up first, and then they will have their choice of this also hand-picked X'd out Champion Rock 3. All right, I handpicked that from the factory a few years ago. This was from an event I ran. This is a 168 Star Destroyer or a DX double-stamped AVR. I'll give you your choice, the runner-up, so to speak. The first one I choose will get their choice of which disc they want. The second one that I choose will get a free pair of Keen shoes. All right. So let me double check that I have the list in front of me. We're seeing 87 total super chats is what I'm being told. It looks like Mike was the last one. Ram Troll was the last one. So I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much. I think we're good to go. I'm going to go out to random.org. I'm going to tell you guys I have no reason to do anything but be on the up and up about this. I'm on random.org. I have 87 entries. Is that the last one? Salamander, are you getting in on it? I have 87 entries right now. Again, I'm going to hit random.org. I'm going to hit it 2 times because this is the second days of coverage. So I'm going to hit it once. That number doesn't matter. I'm going to hit it a second time, and whatever that number is, I'm going to go reference it to the spreadsheet, and whatever number that is, whatever row that is, and they came in sequentially, so you'll be able to have some idea. If I pull number 3 and you super chatted 2 seconds ago, you're probably not that number. So we'll go out there and we're going to do it that way if everyone's ready. This is exciting. You guys ready? Who doesn't want free stuff, right? Well, kind of free stuff. I guess it was kind of like a... And as I start to think about closing it out, gosh, I don't believe I babbled for this long. I want to say, if you guys want to join me tomorrow night, let me know. I had not quite the crowd I had last night, which is totally fine. I don't care. I could talk for hours to myself, as some of you know. But if you want me to keep doing this, I very much foresee doing this tomorrow night, and then possibly even Saturday night as well. We're probably going to have a USDGC watch party over on the Smashbox channel on Saturday during the day. Here we go, folks. Here we go. Yeah, the Mamba is yours to buy, Chad. I'm just gonna give you that luxury of just purchasing it outright. Here we go. I'm going to hit generate once, hit generate a second time, and 81 is our first winner. 81, as I go cross-reference that. 81, in fact, was one of our last super chatters. That is Ram Troll. So Mike R. I probably said your name earlier, but Mike, you are our first winner. You'll have your choice of these 3 discs. Mike, put it in the comments, actually. Let me know right now, and then you can remind me later. How about this? Mike's going to put it in the comments. He's going to pick one. Then I'm going to give away another one of these. He wants the Destroyer. All right. The Nintendo-themed. Wow, that is beautiful. I set it aside on purpose. All right. All right, here we go. I'm going to hit it 2 more times. This will not be for the cards, or the free card. This will be for another disc. You guys suckered me into it, into another disc. I'm going to go back to random. I'm going to hit it 2 more times because it's still the second night. And here we go. Hit it 1 more time and a second time. And the number is, good, I like that we're spreading it. The number is 62. And another $20 contributor tonight. Thank you so much. That goes to Tony Boyko. Tony, thank you so much. This can be, you're like, who's the people that verifies the Grammys and the Emmys and the Tonys? The Marcus, you're able to double check this because you made the actual list. So Marcus, you can double check it. But yes, 62 is Tony Boyko. So Tony, thank you so much. I'm going to now have to add one more. Jeremy John got in on the action. But first, if you let me know, Tony, or I'll reach out to you, which one you want. All right. All right, now I have to go to number, now I got to add one and go to 88 because Jeremy John just got in on the action. So 88, I'm going to generate 2 numbers. First one doesn't matter. Second one's our winner. And our number is, oh my gosh, 68. And I don't know if that's still in the Tony territory. It is not. Tony had up through 65. A $10 contributor, I don't know if that was his first or second set of contributions. 68, Ronald Harkey. So Ronald Harkey, booyah. My number's going to plummet to 0. Ronald Harkey, booyah, congratulations. I don't think they still use booyah. Rest in peace, Stuart Scott. Ronald Harkey, your winner. Thank you to Keen for supporting me. Thank you to Keen for supporting disc golf. And I couldn't be happier to be able to give out this code to our winner tonight. So thank you guys so much. Carver says it's rigged. You got it, buddy. Random's not random, right, Carver? So there you guys have it. Ronald Harkey, yes. And Ronald, I know you are frequently a supporter of Smashbox and of stuff that I do. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in and being any kind of a supporter here tonight. But thank you so much. And it is great to have 3 different winners. Again, Tony Boyko will have his choice of the AVR or the Rock. Mike Ramstack here will get the Star Destroyer. And Ronald Harkey taking home the Keens. Okay. Parting shots, final things, anything else from you guys? If not, I'm going to call it. I said to myself, instead of 90 minutes, try and stick to an hour. And instead, I went 2 hours. I disgust myself. Please join us tomorrow. Join us on the UDisc Super Chat. We'll be there. I'll be there. A bunch of other people will be there. Hopefully so many of you guys enjoy the show. Congrats to Fulcrum and the crew that put out a really solid show today. I'm looking forward to more of the same over the next couple days. I expect exactly that. It looks like we're going to have great weather. And it looks like we're heating things up at the United States Disc Golf Championship. So it's been great. Ronald, yes, send me a message via Facebook. I'll get you that. Chad, if you're on Facebook, send me a message there, please. And we'll get you taken care of since you wanted to outright purchase a sweet dyed champion Mamba from a few years ago that I did. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for the super chat. Thank you to Keen. Thank you to Marcus Burks for keeping the super chats organized for me and all in a documented spreadsheet for me. You guys are all incredible and amazing. I look forward to having you guys tomorrow night, Friday night. Where else would you rather be than, I don't know, listening to me babble about what we all love, the United States Disc Golf Championships and disc golf. So, for Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, this has been my day 2 wrap-up, recovery, thoughts, vlog, podcast thing. Thank you guys for joining me. My camera's on the other side, so my finger's going to cover it. Maybe this will be more or less smooth than yesterday. All right, we're going to find out the hard way. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.